How do deep sea creatures see in the dark? Below a depth of 660 to 3,300 feet, 200 to 1,000 meters, the ocean is in permanent darkness. There, the blinking lights on tiny microscopic animals look like fairy dust. They illuminate the fangs of strange deep sea fishes. More than 3/4 of deep sea animals are bioluminescent. They produce their own living lights, like fireflies. Clyde wondered if giant squid also glow in the dark. Many marine animals, such as jellyfishes, glow in the dark. Why? Maybe it's to attract mates or food, scare away predators, or to find their way in the blackness of the deep ocean. Seeking out the giant squid's relatives. Scientists study similar animals to learn about the characteristics and behavior of elusive creatures like the giant squid. They make deductions that may help them zero in on their target. So if Clyde couldn't yet swim with the giant squid, he would find the next best thing. He went to Mexico's western coast, where the cold waters of the Humboldt Current are home to another large squid, the Humboldt squid. A Humboldt squid can weigh as much as 100 pounds, 45 kilograms, and grow to be more than 8 feet, 2.4 meters long. Although not nearly as large as the other big squids, it has a reputation as a vicious killer. At night, Humboldt squid gather by the hundreds, even thousands, near the surface of the Sea of Cortez to hunt for fishes, shrimps, and other cephalopods. Fishermen there have a special name for the squid, Diablo Rojo, Red Devil. It earned its nickname partly because its body flashes deep red when it's caught on a fishing line, and partly because a Humboldt squid ferociously attacks bait, other Humboldt squid, and sometimes even humans. A Humboldt squid, known locally as the Red Devil, devours another Humboldt squid in the Sea of Cortez. Clyde learned firsthand about Humboldt squid attacks when he and a film crew from National Geographic accompanied the fishermen one night. The fishermen caught the Humboldt squid on a special fishing lures called jigs that allowed the captured squid to slip off the line as soon as it's flipped aboard the boat. When a large female squid was caught on a jig, Clyde put on his wetsuit and scuba tank and dove underwater. Clyde moved in to get a closer look. He was staring into her open mouth when the squid suddenly nipped Clyde with her fist-sized beak and jetted away. After several hours of observing and filming more Humboldt squid from a safer distance, Clyde climbed back into the boat, exhausted. He peeled off his wetsuit and discovered blood spurting from a deep wound where the squid had bitten him. He still has the scar on his thigh to remind him he might well have suffered a worse fate. Watching the Humboldt squid helped Clyde imagine how the giant squid might hunt and capture its food. It also made him wonder what an encounter with a giant squid might be like if it is as fierce as the Red Devil. The open beak of a Humboldt squid is a scary sight, especially if you encounter it underwater at night. Clyde holds up a Humboldt squid like the one that took a bite out of his leg. The wound can be seen on his thigh. Wound from squid bite. There is another gigantic squid. A squid known as a colossal squid is found in the cold, deep waters around Antarctica. If squids were athletes, the giant squid would be a long, lean basketball player. The colossal squid would be a football player. It's much heavier and bulkier than Archaeteuthis, the first colossal squid, with strange fang-like suckers on its tentacles, was discovered in 1925 inside, you guessed it, the stomach of a sperm whale. Scientists have counted the number of colossal squid beaks found inside the stomachs of sperm whales. They have estimated that colossal squid make up 3/4 of the diet of the sperm whales that feed in Southern Ocean, which surrounds Antarctica. A squid biologist examines a colossal squid, a big job. Compared to the giant squid, its body is longer, but its arms are shorter. The British sailing ship Silvery Light served as Clyde's research vessel on a National Geographic expedition off the Azores in the Atlantic Ocean. Diving deeper. Inspired by what he learned from the giant squid's cousins, Clyde was even more determined to search for his giant, alive. He launched a National Geographic expedition to the Azores Islands in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, where sperm whales go to feed. The sperm whale would show him the way. Clyde knew he couldn't dive deep enough to follow the whales. Giant squid live far deeper than a scuba diver can go. So Clyde had to find other ways to seek his giant. He enlisted the help of National Geographic photographer Greg Marshall, the inventor of the Critter Cam. The special video camera can be attached to sea animals such as dolphins, seals, and sea turtles to record their underwater journeys. The Critter Cam, invented by a National Geographic engineer, has been used to follow many different creatures, including penguins in the wild. Scientists used a big blue suction cup to attach the Critter Cam to a sperm whale's head. How do you fasten a camera to a 100,000-pound wild animal? Very carefully. When the researchers were ready to attach the camera, they quietly paddled an inflatable kayak toward a whale resting just under the water surface. The whale remained surprisingly calm as they attached the camera to its head with a suction cup. A video camera, depth recorder, and audio recorder mounted on the suction cup recorded the whale's dive. An hour later, the camera was released from the whale. A pinging sound led the searchers to the camera floating in the water. The excited scientists hauled the Critter Cam on board and played the video. Would they see the first glimpse of a giant squid in action? The whale had descended to 2,600 feet, 800 meters. The lights on the camera could penetrate only a few feet into the darkness at that depth, but the sound recorder allowed the scientists to hear the calls of distant whales. The sperm whale returned their calls. Gradually, more and more sounds collected around the whale. Clyde's team could hear the whales greeting each other. Perhaps they were saying, "I found a great place to get squid." They sent the Critter Cam down 7 more times on that expedition. Clyde learned a great deal about the giant squid's habitat and its predators, but he still hadn't found a squid. What about tracking the creatures that the giant squid eats? A small kayak may not seem the safest way to approach a sperm whale resting on the surface, but the scientists worried that a motorboat would scare it away. Follow the food. A fellow scientist told Clyde he'd found deep-sea fish called orange roughy inside the stomachs of dead giant squid, so Clyde led an oceanographic cruise to the underwater canyon where fishermen net these fish. Sperm whales also gather there. Clyde used an autonomous underwater vehicle, AUV, a miniature sub controlled from the surface by computer. He felt as if he were swimming among the fishes as he directed the sub from the control room of the research ship. Clyde learned more about what the giant squid eat and the other animals that live at those great depths, but he did not find the giant squid. Are giant squid good to eat? Clyde loves to eat squid, which is called calamari when prepared as food. No one had ever tasted a giant squid, so Clyde, always curious, decided he should taste a specimen that was one of his friends and stored in his fridge. It was very, very bitter, he recalls. The meat was analyzed and the scientists discovered the muscles contain a chemical similar to one in our urine. Ancient fish, ancient forests. Orange roughy are some of the longest-lived fishes in the ocean. Left undisturbed, these fish may live to be more than 100 years old. The orange roughy inhabit huge groves of ancient tree corals up to 33 feet, 10 meters tall, and more than 1,000 years old. Corals, though they may look like plants, are animals, relatives of jellyfish and sea anemones. Orange roughy and the coral forest are being wiped out by deep-sea trawlers. Their heavy nets mow down the ancient corals to scoop up the orange roughy, which are sold as deep-sea perch. Before long, the orange roughy and this food for the giant squid will be gone. The scientists launched the Odyssey, an AUV equipped with a Critter Cam in the nose. On Clyde's next research trip, he and a crew from Discovery Channel used a manned submarine, the Deep Rover. The sub explored an underwater canyon off the coast of New Zealand, where another favorite food of giant squid lives, hoki fish. Sperm whales know that too. Young sperm whales go there to gorge on giant squid and other kinds of deep-sea squids. Clyde figured that giant squid might be attracted to the bioluminescent light given off by most deep-sea animals, so he draped the sub with light sticks, like those that trick-or-treaters carry on Halloween. A pilot inside the tiny sub maneuvered the Deep Rover. Continual images from several video cameras beamed back to Clyde in the ship's control room as he watched expectantly. Clyde's team saw a blue-green bioluminescent light show from the many deep-sea creatures, but the giant squid remained hidden. However, with each new expedition, Clyde learned new things about squid predators and squid prey. He learned about the giant squid's ecosystem, the area it lives in, and all it contains. All of these findings provided more and more clues to solving the secret of the giant squid. Discovering more about the deep sea ecosystem can tell us about squid and, more importantly, the future of giant squid. Fishing boats drag heavy nets across the ocean floor and destroy the habitats of many bottom-dwelling animals that giant squid depend on for food. Clyde worries that the ocean food web is threatened by overfishing. If the food supply of the giant squid disappears, this in turn will take away a main food source of the sperm whale. The New Zealand ship Kehora carried Clyde to Kaikoura Canyon, a deep trench off the coast of New Zealand. Clyde sits in a small submarine, the Deep Rover, shortly before it descends into the deep waters where giant squid lurk. The Deep Rover carried several video cameras, both inside and out, ready to capture a giant squid on film. Clyde shared his findings with others who study giant squid, a small group of scientists called teuthologists. Though they are spread all around the globe, they are bound together by their passion for the chief. Clyde and his colleagues had to find a way to let the world know about the giant squid. They hoped more people would care about the giant squid if they could see one living peacefully in its natural habitat. They wanted to show the world that these monsters are fascinating creatures vital to the ocean environment. How to have a healthy ocean. Cephalopods, says Clyde, are great examples of biodiversity. This is because as a group they are spread all over the world, from shallow tropical reefs to the great depths of the ocean. A squid from Maine will look a lot like a squid from California, but they are slightly different because of their different habitats and living conditions, enough so that they will not be able to mate and have offspring. They are known as different species. Preserving this fascinating variety of life is important for keeping all life in oceans healthy, Clyde says. The long-finned squid, found off the coast of Maine, is a popular species used in preparing calamari. Taking the bait. A Japanese doctor of zoology, Tsunemi Kubodera, continued the search using Clyde's documented evidence that sperm whales led to giant squid. Dr. Kubodera chose to study an area of the Japanese coast where sperm whales come to feed each year from September to December. He programmed a camera to take a flash picture every 30 seconds and attached it to a long fishing line. Hooks on the line were baited with chopped shrimp and squid, in the hope of luring a giant squid into camera range. They lowered the fishing line into the deep and waited. The diagram of the scale: pole flag, floats, the main line, the small light, camera and depth logger, the fishing line, the hook plus bait squid, the shrimp bait bag, weighted squid jig, bait squid. A deep sea camera used baited fishing line to lure giant squid. Tsunemi Kubodera's expedition to find a giant squid centered in the western Pacific Ocean. Kubodera made 23 trips over 3 years to the area and repeated the experiment. Finally, a giant squid grabbed the baited hook. For 4 hours, the captured squid twisted and turned. Sometimes it attacked the bait, other times it pulled away, trying to escape. The camera took 556 underwater images of the squid before it managed to break free, leaving a tentacle 18 feet, 5.5 meters long, embedded on the hook. When the team brought the tentacle on board, the large suckers grabbed onto the deck of the boat and then onto Kubodera's fingers. These first photographs of a living giant squid were released in 2005. Clyde celebrated along with the rest of the squid world. Examining the photos, Clyde saw that a giant squid is far more active than anyone had expected. Despite its huge size, it was not a sluggish creature waiting for food to come near. It made Clyde recall his encounter with another aggressive hunter, the Humboldt squid. 2 of the hundreds of underwater photos Kubodera took as a giant squid struggled to free itself from the hook. The images, though fuzzy because they were enlarged, are thrilling to see as they capture a historic moment in ocean science. The squid's 18-foot, 5.5-meter tentacle caught on the hook. Why didn't the giant squid leave circular scars on the scientist? The scars on sperm whales are made by a giant squid fighting to avoid the whale's jaws during a fierce but short battle for survival, which the squid usually loses. The giant squid that Kubodera captured was caught in about 3,000 feet, 900 meters of water, and it dragged the heavy camera rig and cable all the way up to about 2,000 feet, 600 meters before it broke loose. By the time the snagged tentacle broke it off and the squid escaped, it must have been a pretty exhausted calamari, said Clyde. The squid latched onto Kubodera's fingers, but didn't have the strength left to cause harm. The suckers at the end of a giant squid's tentacles can grasp objects. 2 years after Cubadero's photos, another breakthrough, his team recorded the world's first video of a live giant squid. They caught the squid at a depth of 2,133 feet, 650 meters, and hauled it to the surface. As the team worked to bring it on board, the thrashing squid fought against the fishing line and shot powerful jets of water from its funnel. These first-hand observations confirm for scientists that the giant squid is indeed a strong swimmer, an active predator, and a fierce fighter. The first video footage of a living giant squid was taken as it was caught on a fishing line baited with a similar species of squid, top and opposite of page. Tsunami Cubadero, PhD, sits next to the giant squid he captured to study. It is now on display in the National Museum of Natural History in Tokyo. The hunt continues. The world has learned so much about ocean life since Clyde's days of tracking snails on the beach. He and his fellow teuthologist have discovered and shared a great deal about giant squid and other ocean mysteries. We know what giant squid eat. We know what eats them. We know more about how to find them. We know more about their distant and mysterious ecosystem. We know what they look like, alive and active. But there is so much more we need to find out about this legendary creature. We still know so little about its behavior and biology. Although Clyde Roper has retired from the Smithsonian, his determination to find a living giant squid continues because he has many more questions yet to answer. Do giant squid gather in huge groups to court and mate like some other squids do? Do they protect their eggs until they hatch as mother octopuses do? Do they squirt ink? Is the ink bioluminescent? How strong are their arms and tentacles? Scientists hope someday to see at least one of the estimated millions of giant squid swimming, eating, courting, fighting, and just being itself in its home in the inky blackness of the deep sea. Clyde Roper often stops by the Sant Ocean Hall in the Museum of Natural History to visit the male and female giant squid that are on display there, encased in plexiglass coffins, floating in a special liquid that preserves them for all to see. They almost seem like creatures from another planet, but Clyde knows better. Sea monsters are real, he says, and I have seen them. A giant squid is one of the most popular exhibits in the Sant Ocean Hall of the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. Could we keep a giant squid in an aquarium? Scientists would love to capture a giant squid to study it, but could we keep it alive in captivity? Richard Lerner, the curator of fishes at the National Aquarium in Baltimore, Maryland, doubts it. There are so many unanswered questions. Will it eat anything else in the tank with it? Will it accept dead food? Can it live in shallow water since it's used to the pressure of the deep sea? Giant squid live in very cold temperatures, so the chiller would have to be immense. Giant squid aren't designed to handle walls. If it tried to jet propel backwards, it would crash into the walls of a tank. There is no tank in the world that could hold it.